Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Golden Vault, in which I build, run, and prepare for our next session of Keys from the Golden Vault. If you're playing characters Cherie, Elowen, Stacey, Tavine, or Vero, this stream is not meant for you to be full of spoilers, but the rest of you are always welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with an invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. You can also support the channel by shopping for your tabletop games, CCGs, miniatures, RPG supplies, and more at our sponsor, Noble Knight Games, using my affiliate link. For our campaign, we use Roll20 Video Chat, we use Discord, and for streaming, I use OBS Studio, and I feel like I need to sneeze. Dang. I got through the entire intro, and it just hit me real bad. Oh my goodness. I think we're all getting sick, too. We've all either gotten over getting sick, or we're in the middle of sick, or if you haven't had one of those two things, then I'm sorry, but you're gonna get sick. It's just the season. It's the season that's happening right now, and we're all falling apart. My family is okay currently, although my youngest is still trying to get over. We had to take her to the doctor twice. It's been kicking her butt. She's got like a swollen lymph node. I said a nymph node. That's something else. A swollen lymph node, which I've never experienced as a person, and it's very painful and uncomfortable, unfortunately. We're actually looking at the map for Little Lockford, because I've kind of started talking about the next mission, even though I'm still calling this the crafting for the Stygian Gambit. But I mean, we can still. I guess we should go over the things that happened last time. But I feel like my players make so relatively little progress during their heist missions because it involves a lot. It's just so much different. I'm learning a lot. So much different than a standard dungeon crawl, where you feel like, okay, we've completed that room, we move on. We complete this room, we move on. So you really feel like you're making that level of progress through an area. But with a heist, you kind of have to keep going around to different areas, and you do a lot of role-playing stuff, and then different complications come up, and it's, I guess, harder to get a feel for those different stages of progression. You're not like just making your way through a standard dungeon crawl. But we did make some progress, I guess. We have players who have reached the back rooms and have explored at least two of the rooms, which I'm really glad that they were able to, despite the freaking weird bug that hit me with the Roll20 dynamic lighting in this one area that literally revealed the secret room before they were supposed to see it, which, oh well, that's that's like the equivalent of playing Baldur's Gate and being able to like move the camera, I guess, and being able to tell about things, even though the game just like doesn't care. It's like, look, this is our game engine. What are you gonna do? But in this case, that was a bug that was not supposed to happen. But they were able to find the back room, and I like that Chris actually immediately surmised that this is kind of where the contracts are happen, and doesn't quite know maybe the details, but really the details aren't even important. It's just kind of some cool environmental storytelling and some background information that I kind of dropped in there, and they got the information about how much money, and that the fact there's multiple names in the vault. I believe that, oh yeah, and then obviously the other big thing was Sherry casting suggestion on Quentin, which I think we did discuss a little bit previously, and I hadn't really gone into it, but I think I'd mostly be okay with it just based on like he had a good wisdom save, he had a good chance to make the save, but I didn't necessarily give him legendary resistance or anything like that. I didn't think he was like a real, I don't know, it didn't feel right. And frankly, I like what they're doing with it. They're not using the suggestion to just, hey, go unlock the vault, take all the money out. That was the kind of thing I was worried about, I guess, was that they would suggest him and it would be kind of a cheat code thing. So I really appreciated the suggestion was used purely as a distraction tool. And also I really appreciated, and I mentioned this in the chat, that the player directly involved another player. Because as I mentioned, that's something that the DM, as the host's job, is to try and engage everybody or as many people as possible in that session. And when another player engages another player, that's perfect. Like, that's exactly what I want to try to do. So that was amazing, and I loved every bit of that. So it does put a little bit of a damper on my plans for the tournament, or tournament. Is that what you're supposed to pronounce it? Tournament? That always bugged the shit out of me. Tournaments, how I always do it. Is that just my southern coming out? In the tournament, that Stacey and Tavine are still a part of and still have a final round involved, but we could just ignore that, I guess, for now. I mean, I'm sure they do want to get back to it eventually. And that will be, I guess, a complication I could say is that when they're like nearing more of their heist thing. I said it was an hour. I'm not really keeping track of that in my head or anything. I'm just trying to be like, all right, at what point is there a lull that we can basically have the tournament? All right, the tournament's back on. We got to call everybody there. And then Tavine and Stacey technically have to go back there, which, you know, the goal was to have Quentin be distracted by the tournament, but now he's distracted by Tavine. So it does create an interesting situation where, you know, I always pictured the party would be together once they reach the vault. And now I'm less and less confident that that's going to be the case. I understand that during a heist, it's all about splitting the party, and that happens, you know, every single heist. But I guess in terms of like combat encounters, I'm not necessarily scaling them for split parties. Right? So that does make those things kind of more difficult. And now I'm less and less confident they're going to be together because Quentin is like tied at the hip now to Tavine. That was like part of the spell being used here. So poor Tavine's job now is to distract Quentin, at least until, you know, unfortunately, I did want Quentin to show up when they're leaving the vault, and he would be magically compelled. What was the suggestion spell exactly? Is it still on here? You find yourself extremely attracted to this creature. You want to show him your office, your vault, everything. Okay. So he's got the hots for Tavine. It is funny how his wizard saves are not that impressive. DC 13. And I had what did I have? A plus, what did I roll? Yeah, I had a +4. So I just had to roll a 9 or better, and I rolled a 7. So the odds were in my favor to make that save. I'm trying to think if his compulsion at having the vault plunder that he would magically become aware of would be like, excuse me, please, and he would still disappear. But unfortunately, that would leave Tavine behind. So maybe he would bring Tavine with him, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, so right now, that's like Tavine's job is to kind of distract him. But maybe we can create complications where, and Tavine and Quentin will try to suggest different areas to visit, and then Tavine can certainly suggest different areas, and I think Quentin would be involved in that. Sherry is concentrating on this spell also, so that is something to be aware of. If he ever breaks concentration, that's going to be a major complication. Right now, nothing is necessarily stopping Sherry and Stacey from entering the back rooms, except the fact that they don't. Sherry does have a pass card, I believe, and Sherry is currently disguised as Scarlett Johansson from Iron Man 2, but notably not as a Tiefling employee, who would be able to get into this back room without, flagging the security system. But right now, the security system is that they had one person exit and investigate, and then the Vero and Elowen did a good job of basically shutting him down and tying him up, and then saying everything's okay. So right now there's only 2 people left in there. So the best thing for the players to do, again, they don't have the information like we do, is to go ahead and enter the security room and beat these guys up really quickly. And then once they do that, then they can just let the backroom people in, and they've got full reign of the place, I guess. Because again, this place doesn't really have an actual good alarm. Like, it is a very vulnerable weakness, which is if you can make it all the way to the security rooms, there's no like overall alarm system or anything that can ping all of the guards. And what's interesting is Quentin being attracted to Tavine wouldn't necessarily stop him from, like, still being in charge of the casino and still wanting to protect the vault and all of that. If anything, he would show off his security system, so that could do all of that. Oh, I see. The suggestion spell always has a task that you have to do, doesn't it? Let's see. Spell details. A course of activity. So I guess the course of activity is that basically you take them on a tour. That's true. I forgot about it's not just an overall charmed condition. It actually has to have an objective. So in this case, the objective is show him your office, your vault, everything. So take him on a tour, which is interesting that the way that Tavine is playing is like, hey, let's just go to the bar and hang out for a little bit. And he's like, all right, I'll show you the bar and stuff. Because Quentin would be eager to show him things, but also he's extremely attracted to Tavine. And if Tavine just says, you know, I want to hang out at the bar a while, then I think Quentin would oblige with that for at least a while. And then he'd want to go show. But there's also other places they could go. They could go, you know, he could visit the restaurant downstairs, go to the circus, go to the... Like, there's a lot of places you could actually visit that aren't even the back rooms if he wants to keep him out of the back room area. Or maybe he does and they want to try to jump Quentin, which they certainly could do early. I wasn't necessarily planning on that. And they don't know how strong he is. They probably figure he's just a dude. But he's actually a pretty decent stat block. And I have teased the fact that he's got this monstrous dog with him, which you and I know is an actual hellhound, which is also a pretty decent stat block there. So that could be a little tricky for them. But all they have to do is get to the security room, which is not locked. Once they're back in here, nothing is locked. Beat up these two guards, which is the tough stat block. And then, if they can wipe these guards out in A16, the mirrors don't matter, because there's no tape recording. And there's nobody looking through the mirrors. So that's all they have to do. They don't know that, and they don't know how many people are in here, and et cetera, et cetera. So again, we're working with perfect information that the party doesn't necessarily have. So just to review my notes, let's see. There is a trapped hallway, which is the, where are we? Stygian Gambit, Afterlife Casino, 18, back hallways. Actually, it's probably on the vault, so it's A19. No, it's not on the vault. Is it not? No, yeah, it is. If a creature without an employee pass card comes within 10 feet of the double door, which I guess is actually the closed door, the devil face opens their mouths and breathes a 10-foot wide, 30-foot long of fire down the hallway. So it's essentially, I think, burning hands. 3d6 fire damage, which is not that much. And you know what? This was for... Is there a... what was the... Isn't there like a table or something I can look at what the like average trap stuff is? Because I actually might need to scale this up. DC 14 is not bad for 4th level. This was originally, again, the 2nd level adventure. There we go. Building our own traps. Building a trap. Nuisance traps and deadly traps. Interesting, they all use a D10. So a nuisance for levels 1 through 4 has a save DC of 10 to 12 and 1d10 damage on average. So I'm actually pretty impressed. This one is a DC 14 at 3d6 fire damage, because that is closer to a deadly trap. Interesting. What is the Dragon's Breath spell? I feel like that's the equivalent of this effect. When in doubt, look at spells. Yeah, this is a... Well, it's half the... this is actually a 30-foot long line, not a cone. So it's really like the dragons that can breathe the lines of the cones. Anyway, Dragon's Breath is 3d6 damage. Half damage on a save with a dex save. Does increase by 1d6 for each spell slot level above 2. And then what is Burning Hands? I know it's also a cone, I believe. Thin sheet of flame shoots up from each creature in a 15-foot cone. Makes a dex save, taking 3d6. It's the same fucking spell. I guess the only difference is Dragon's Breath, you can do different types of damage. But also, Dragon's Breath is less because Burning Hands is a first level spell, it does 3d6 fire damage. You can increase it by using a second level by doing 4d6. Okay, I feel like we need to up that damage. I'm actually not too upset by the DC 14. We might keep that, but I think we could at least make it a 4d6. Jeez. Oh, you know what? I actually wrote down 46 in my notes. Ha! I'm already on top of it. Okay. Good job, me. Which is just going to happen. Let's see. Does it reset? Chapter resets at the next dawn. So it only goes off once. So if both, let's say if Elowen and Vero approach the door, then the trap will go off because only one of them has the pass card. But in theory, once it goes off, it won't go off again, I guess. But I think I would let it reset at some point because that's just fun. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to think how Baldur's Gate does it with traps. Some traps go off once and others are like constant. I feel like anything that breathes fire could be a constant trap. That'd actually be crazy if it's just constantly breathing fire. That got me thinking. Until literally somebody isn't, or somebody is within 10 feet that's not. I guess it wouldn't. Once they move out of range, it would stop. Although they get within 10 feet and it goes 30 feet down the hallway. Wow. So then they have to exit outside of 10 feet. Then it stops breathing fire. And then if somebody approaches with the pass card within 10 feet, they can open the door. Now, once the door is opened, if it literally forms the devil face, then I guess the trap is deactivated. But then you could argue that the doors close after a minute or something. So you would give some leeway for people to be able to hop in. And then I could do a hilarious thing where the party exits, they don't think about it. I guess if they're opening the door and they all rush outside and get outside of 10 feet within a minute, then the trap wouldn't trigger again. And then inside, this is another thing that I've changed. Normally there's a Minotaur skeleton, which the party has a chance to control. That's normally a CR2 creature. Pretty basic. But I am replacing that with a Bone Naga, which I did tease, as kind of a gift from Mammon to guard the vault. I imagine the Bone Naga... I was just thinking I was going to have the Bone Naga be immediately hostile to anybody who enters, but that doesn't necessarily make sense if occasionally somebody from the casino does need to enter the vault, including Quentin. So maybe we go with the same pass card rule there, since the vault door only cares about the pass card. So maybe instead of even seeing the Naga, we just see a bunch of bones. And the bones knit together. If anybody enters the vault who doesn't have a pass card. Do we like that idea? I wonder if we can just search for bone pile, maybe? That does give the only disappointment is that I did want to force this Naga fight. And if the players are really smart and cautious and decide that only the person with the pass card is going to enter the vault, get in here, and take the stuff and get out, then they can do all that without even disturbing the Naga. Whereas I was kind of hoping to force that as at least one cool big fight the party has to face. This is a CR4 creature. Would be a pretty good fight for the full party. Probably do some nasty damage, but ultimately go down. Just, again, action economy. It does have multi-attack. Bite attack is great. Does good damage, but only has a +4 to hit. It can replace one of those with Serpentine Gaze, which I believe is a ranged attack that also gives the Charmed condition, which is awesome. And it can use its entire action to just cast Lightning Bolt, which is also amazing. That becomes a very difficult fight, however, if the party is split up. But that's not my fault. So we don't have some kind of built-in extra security. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out what... because it does mention the fact that the Devil Fate... Okay, I guess if I'm reading what the original creature was, which is the Minotaur Skeleton, it says it just attacks anyone who isn't escorted by Quentin. But I believe that's because Quentin carries some kind of a rod that literally controls the creature. Which I'm getting rid of here. So I could make that the same case. Like maybe only Quentin is literally allowed to be in the vault. And even though the Devil Face only triggers on the employee pass cards, the Naga knits together if Quentin's just not... Basically, it just senses if anybody's not, like, partnered with Mammon or something. And it'll, like, glow its eye. Do Nagas speak? Languages. Common plus one other language. Okay. So I can have its eyes flash and just say, like, intruder detected. Non-fiend intruder detected or something. Maybe clue to the fact that... Although I don't think... Quentin's technically not a fiend, is he? He's a cultist fanatic? I think he's still a dude. I'm just a dude. Yeah, he's just a guy. But he doesn't have a, you know... Players don't have a relationship with fiends, so maybe that's what I can somehow reveal. Okay, so I've talked myself back into having the Bone Naga be a forced fight, which is going to be very difficult. Again, if it's only like 2 or 3 players, that's going to be a hell of a fight and make things very tricky, which they could just run away, escape. Oh, so here's something. What happens if they get all the way to the vault, enter the vault, see the Naga, realize they're in over their heads and actually escape and try to regroup with the rest of the party maybe before going back in the vault? Because, again, they don't know this creature's... Well, I did kind of tease it with something here, I guess. They have so much information. It's funny that Ray's like, we have no information. I'm like, you guys have done nothing but get information for the last 4 sessions. At some point, like, you do have to assume there's gonna be a few surprises, right? That's what kind of makes the heists exciting. And at this point, I don't know if they have any surprises left. I think they've got all the information that they could possibly get, rather than me just literally telling them everything they're gonna come across. But if they escape, I guess the only thing I'm worried about is I was gonna have Quentin teleport into the hallway whenever they complete the vault. But what happens if they enter the vault but don't complete it, they rush back and realize they need to regroup? Would Quentin know that people are in the vault? Or maybe he only gets alerted when they actually start looting things out of the vault. Or attacking the Bone Naga, maybe. That way it gives the party a little more time to figure that thing out. I would really like for Quentin and Tavine to be separated by the time they're really in there kicking the Naga's ass. That way I can have Quentin magically teleport to A18, the back hallway. But we'll see how it plays out, because he is still magically compelled to help show Tavine around everything. And maybe Tavine can just be like, "Oh shit, the reinforcements need me. Hey, let's go to the hallway. Let's go over there." And also, Sherry could technically drop suggestion at any point, but that's also dangerous. Does the target know if they've? I feel like I've asked this before. Do they know if they've had suggestion cast on them? Because I know like Charm Person specifically calls that out, but I don't think other spells do. I feel like that would not make it as useful if they just knew. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about them realizing that happened. Charm target poses suggestion to the best of its ability. Continues the entire duration, but if completed in a shorter time, the spell ends the target upon completing it. So I don't think they would necessarily know. They may just like snap out and be like, "What? Where am I? What's going on? What happened in the last however long it lasted?" Now maybe a spellcaster would know and be able to tell, like, "Oh shit, I've been enchanted somehow." Not sure about that. I wonder if we could use a possible escalation of the guards coming to talk to Quentin. It's something I could add. Of like, hey, we haven't heard from, like, sir, the guard shifts, or I don't know, something. We haven't heard anything. Yeah, just have somebody, kind of one of the security staff, come up to Quentin and ask him that maybe something is going on and that he should go check it out. And we could have a fun role playing where Quentin's like trying to be like brush it off and try to impress Tavine some more, but still tell them to you know, be on alert, or maybe send a couple more guards into the security room or something. Interestingly enough, we also seem to have forgotten about the whole circus thing. Players and DM like, I mean, the DM is just kind of treating it like do the players want to interact with this or not? I expected it to be a lot more active, and that being a big thing, given how we ended the last reconnaissance for it. I expected the party to maybe even start with this. But because it's in such a enclosed, separate space, I'm not sure. Now, I think if they were to continue along this path and actually make it up to the hallway and enter the back rooms, maybe we should have the circus be going on, versus having all these things just waiting for them in the room, because that could be more interesting. They could actually enter the circus from here, for example, and do some fun shenanigans, or they could set up some kind of, I don't know, weird ambush or something for them. They still have the risk of crossing across this mirror in the upper hallway if they haven't taken out the security team yet. But that's probably worth setting up the circus. But I can't do that entirely off camera because some of the players are out here. Heists are so complicated. So I can't just magically say, "Oh, by the way, the circus is in session." I kind of have to like have the circus be in session from out here, that the party members who are still out here can see, like, hey, the circus is starting, and maybe have that going on. So we may do that near the start of the next session, is trigger the circus events, which I forget how long that's supposed to last. I think they actually said there's a length for that. What is this? A8. Let's see. Occurs once every 4 hours. Each show presents apparatus trained animals. Star of the show is a trained lion. Oh, hour-long performances. There we go. I just missed it. So we could have that last for an hour, which I think is about right. So and then once that is about wrapping up is when the tournament would begin. So we should probably have the circus start. So I should move these folks into here, I think. Maybe have these opened. Like so. That can be... Well, actually, I won't close it yet. I'll mention it at the start of the session, then we'll have that character go in there. So we'll have the circus going on at the start of the session. Let's see, what do I have? Session 10 updates. Start the circus performance. Quentin is magically attracted to Tavine. Just to show him the full casino. And tournament final round starts in about 1 hour or so. Also, I mentioned that their poison that they took from Schemo as part of the insurance policy for the resurrection they got for Elowen would start hitting them during their final day of the heists, the way the time frame worked out, which is going to be this session, I believe. Also, Elowen should be 1 tick lower on her exhaustion. I don't know if we're even tracking that. Let's go into your sheet. You have exhaustion 1. Okay, so maybe she is tracking that. All right, that's fine. You can be at 1. I think you'd be at 2 right now, but you can be at 1. What's going to happen, though, is that Tavine and Sherry are going to enter exhaustion level 1 because of the poison. Now, that should be the only one they have, assuming they can finish the rest of this heist in this day, which they need to, and then go turn in the money. But that will hit them during this session. I don't know right at the beginning, but certainly during this upcoming session, I'm going to hit them with the feeling of the antidote. They feel a little uncomfortable and queasy and kind of feverish, all the flu symptoms. And that will equate as... I guess I could give them the poison condition instead. Well, I think that's actually worse. I think exhaustion as a flat -1 to everything is not nearly as bad as having disadvantage on everything. So I think we'll just give them the 1 level of exhaustion. I think will be appropriate there, just to ramp up that tension a little bit. So I will make that in my notes. Feel the effects of Schemo's poison equals 1 level of exhaustion. Yeah, it would make Quentin more aware. Yeah, so I think people would be like confused about what happened, and like I said, anybody who's familiar with spellcasting might put 2 and 2 together and be like, there's a spell cast on me. And he's already pretty wary of Sherry because he kind of recognizes Sherry as a wizard, and that would always put him on edge for anybody being in here with their shenanigans. And he's kind of actively looking for Shuri because of the other suggestion spell that Shuri cast, and Shuri is, again, currently disguised as just some random chick. So that's something Shuri has to keep in mind as well. What is his spell slots like? I mean, they haven't really even had a combat encounter in here yet, right? I mean, they technically had 1, sort of. He's used 2 second levels and 1 first level. Because he's cast Suggestion twice and used Disguise Self once. They sort of had 1 very quick combat encounter where they used it to just quickly wrap up a guard. and incapacitate him, which was great, and I allowed that to work because that's, again, something that needs to happen in a heist. But I still leave it up to the dice to try to figure out how that's going to work. And I think we'll see at least 2, maybe 3 more combat encounters. The party may be able to play it really smart somehow and do the same thing with these security guards. Because, again, they don't know that there's not some kind of global security system here. So they might think that opening this door, they're going to see like a bunch of guards in here that they have to fight, and that's not a good idea. So they may feel like they need to draw them out like they did the other guy somehow. If they do that again, though, and they make it really obvious, I may do a thing where I may pull one of the guards out, but I may, like, because I've got these extra guards here, I may actually spawn a guard or 2 if they purposely, like, trigger the security mirror or something to make things a little more challenging versus if they continue, like, stealthing around and sneaking. And then A13, I think, is just full of regular employees. I don't think they have any problems there. Yeah, the off-duty employees are chatty and not overly fond of their employer. But at this point, they've got all the information that I think they could possibly acquire. The performers, though, at the circus would certainly want to... They'd be willing to fight a little bit. But I think I said they could also probably be talked out of it. And a lot of this depends on, like, how much of the play... if the full party is there and they're armed, that certainly gives them a lot more negotiating power versus if it's just 2 or 3 of them and they're skulking around. I'm really hoping that we can finish this heist in the next 2 sessions because we're going to be on Thanksgiving break for a week. And that would be nice timing to not have to take, as always, a big major break towards the end of a scenario. Now, this is not scripted, so I don't know, exactly how things are going to play out. At the very least, they should know what their damn objective is. They shouldn't need to get any more information. I feel like they're so nervous about progressing. I almost have to, like, just prod and prod and prod. And I'm very happy that Chris was like, all right, we're going in, and kind of dragged Elo in and got inside and at least did some stuff in there. Because I'm feeling like the whole time they're like, all right, you guys got to, like, make a decision to move in and actually execute on this plan instead of just roaming around this outer area. Now, granted, I've given them stuff to do, like the tournament and gambling opportunities and things, but we really need to make some stuff happen. So I think a fight in A16, if they just do it legitimately and walk in there, there's only 2 guards. And these guards, they don't have a way of alerting other guards. They would try to move towards the door, but since there's only 1 door here, the players kind of have an advantage to keep them at bay. So they can actually keep things relatively quiet, which is why I like the idea of them coming in and just, again, they don't have that information, but of just coming in and fighting, because they've actually got a good advantage at taking these guards out and not alerting the rest of the casino. Also, if their backs are turned... Yeah, it specifically says they face the west wall, which is what the map shows. And that 3 security guards monitor the mirrors, which they've already taken 1 out. So you could argue if they're being quiet enough, which I think they would be, that the party could surprise them. Which, granted, is not as powerful in the new edition, because you don't get that free, like, extra round of doing shit. You just get advantage on your initiative, so you could even have them go first. Also, I would demand that the party actually have to be hiding first with the hide invisible mechanic in order to get off that advantage in the first of a fight. Otherwise, it's just like everybody was alerted together, and it's just that you guys... Actually, is it that you have advantage or the surprised enemies have disadvantage? No, I don't fucking remember. Because there's 2 different things that I keep conflating, and that's surprise and being invisible / hidden. And I think if you surprise somebody, I think that means they have disadvantage. I don't think you actually change your initiative at all, unless you are specifically hiding at the time, right? And you have like the invisible condition, then I think you then have advantage on your initiative, which the party could do both those things if they're both hiding. I mean, if only one of them's hiding, then that only one has advantage. So I kind of have to pay attention to that, I guess. But I mean, even then, these two toughs are 30 hit points each. Like that's not, and we're level 4. We don't have multi attack, so this could be a protracted fight if it's just two people fighting. And then, like I said, they've got the trapped hallway. The bone naga is real bad news. Did I ever get my bone pile? I did not. Well, one looks necessarily like skulls, though. All these bone piles are too bony. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of bones. I need just a moderate amount of bones. Goodness. Too many bones in these bone piles. Also, I don't need skulls, which is unfortunate. Ooh, that one's not bad. The art style's a little different, but that's not bad. Okay. So put you on the GM layer. I'll just leave that there so I can get rid of it when I need to. It's funny. Everybody considers bone pile to be just an absolute amazing amount of bones. All right, so I don't know what else to discuss here before we get to the next session. I keep talking about the same things. I'm making small incremental changes and talking about stuff, so it's still useful, but it's just funny how much I have to plan, and I've mentioned this a couple times, with a heist, how much I have to plan everything out at the beginning and then make little incremental changes and updates as the party progresses, versus in a dungeon, I can just kind of take a more focused lens on where the party is in a dungeon and then kind of follow them along that path and adapt from there. So in a heist, I guess it's a lot more work up front, and then in theory, less work throughout each session, which is why I'm gonna, I think, switch over to Talkworth Clockworks and talk a little bit about that heist mission, so that we can get started on that one. This is the next level mission. It is located in the Underdark, and I believe the party gets it from the premise is that this Deep Gnome town has been recently taken over by a tinkerer who has gone full cyborg. Dixie Talkwork, once entrusted with the town's security, has turned the clockwork automatons against the populace. Infiltrate Little Lockford, retrieve a security key, and use it to power down the automatons. I've heard interesting complaints about this one, that they're like, well, it's not really a heist, it's more of a dungeon crawl. But it's a dungeon crawl in a very cool, like, hostile, urban, exotic setting. It's this freaking town with these sections of town separated by bridges over lava in the Underdark. So already a lot of cool possibilities there. The bridges are actually up in several areas, which I've used art to put the connectors on the GM layer, because the party has the ability to raise and lower the bridges if they can make it to the security system. There's also this like bucket thing that they can use to travel around. So right when they enter, they can either follow the bridges and go east, or follow this bucket. It's like carries like ore and shit, which I believe moves counterclockwise. They can use that to go south, and the goal is to get to the southeast where the actual boss resides. Now, the reason they want the key is because there's a single key that will basically power down all the automatons in the city. So at this point, the city is basically empty of people, mostly, I believe. Where does it show? Yeah, meet the mayor. She and her fellow gnome exiles are gathered in a cavern not far from the gate, Little Lockford. Because they get the message from the Golden Vault, I guess. The whole town is like just tried to escape. So there's very little people. I think there's only a few like survivors in here, and the whole town has like just these automatons like roaming around, guarding everything, and basically the boss has gone insane and has turned herself into this like crazy mechanical cyborg thing. But instead of trying to get in here, get an item, and then get out, the party's goal is to get in there, get the item, and then immediately use that item here to then turn everything off. So, still, it has the premise of a heist, but I guess the execution ends up really being a dungeon crawl. Because I don't know how much stealthing and guards and all that you can deal with. Although I will try to play that up with the automatons roaming around. I don't know. The automatons, I may have to mess with their stat block. Although this will be the first one in the whole campaign that we're actually using the appropriate level for. I believe this is the level 5 adventure from Keys to the Golden Vault. And the players will level up to 5 after they complete the Stygian Gambit. So we can look at the numbers and see if everything looks appropriate. Obviously, 5 is tough because it's a huge jump in power for the players, getting access to 3rd level spells, multi-attack, and all that good stuff. I think they pretty much have to fight the boss at the end also, which I do love that boss stat block of Tixie, because she basically guards the key. The key is not on her, but I believe it says that she knows if the key gets taken, and then she uses, it's actually pretty much the same what I'm doing with Quentin. She teleports to the party, literally can cast Dimension Door, and instantly like basically attacks them. Although maybe I can allow some kind of a role-playing thing here, because I think it mentions that she's like really crazy because she's lonely or something. Does it mention that in the background? At some point, Talkworth lost all compassion and empathy for fellow townspeople. She replaced parts of her body. Melissa tried to shut down a workshop. She unleashed her automatons on the citizens of Little Lockford, many of whom were killed. The survivors sealed the doors to Little Lockford. Lockford's mayor, Mayor Braith Broadfoot, says as he managed to infiltrate the town, retrieve the security key lastly in Talkworth's possession. When used to activate a failsafe device in Talkworth's workshop, the key permanently shuts down the automatons. So they even say that she's got the key on her, even though I don't think that's actually the case in the heist. This one also, the players have no chance to scout it out ahead of time, which adds to the challenge. They will get a map. They get, where's the map? They get this map because the mayor's there, so he knows the locations and stuff. In fact, it's got notes on it, which is cute. So it's got the whole, like, boroughs or whatever, areas of the town. Pretty sure a few monks barricading themselves in here may still be alive in the abbey. Emergency health potions under my desk in the town hall. That's kind of cool to point to that. The slag line was built to transport ore, but a bucket is big enough to hold 5 deep gnomes. So the party can easily take the buckets. And it does even mention that some of the bridges are currently up, I guess. Although I don't know if his notes... I guess I'll just have to tell them about the bridges. Talk with the security center as her base. You can access it via the north or south stairs. I guess they have to get to the overlook. Okay, so their goal will be they'll have to restore the bridges at some point so they can get to the overlook here. If you see you lurking around the district, avoid it. It's just warehouses. So this straight up just says avoid the cave mouth, which, yeah, there's a mine there where you can have underdark creatures coming out. Which is interesting if they just go by buckets. Maybe I can force a fight with something like a cloaker. So it points out a tavern. The failsafe is here. Okay, so he points out... I guess this is where they have to use the key. So they do know where that is. And then Turbine Heights, the guards left the jail, but the prisoners weren't in the head count. That's interesting, because there are prisoners that they can find, which is a goblin boss and a bugbear, who could be a really fun role-playing opportunity. Series first aid and healing available here in the infirmary, and the power station controls backup bridge controls here. So actually, you could just walk across the eastern route to Turbine Heights, go to the power station, and immediately restore the bridge controls. And then you've got access to, I guess, the Overlook and Smolder Town. I did find at least one supplement I think I might use that adds kind of a puzzle element to the bridge controls, which seems interesting. As well as it actually maps out each of these areas because, unfortunately, as much as I love this, I guess, regional map, and I think it's fabulous, we can't actually like use that as a battlefield. And it does have some battle areas below it, but those are very specific indoor locations, and unfortunately also really small. So if you want to just have like a random encounter battle with the automatons or something, then I'll need to use those extra supplements. Which is that under the overview? Yeah, Little Lockford has 20 clockwork defenders and 8 clockwork observers. And then Talkworth, the boss, also has 2 animated armors and a shield guardian. So that seems like a pretty good amount of things. Shield guardians are tough as fuck, aren't they? Oh, that one's not pointing to the right one, apparently. What are these clockwork stat blocks, though? That's not an official thing, right? That's right. Timo Beast has the Clockwork Hound. Actually, a bunch of clockwork stuff. But I don't think they've done any official... Yeah, we don't really have any official, like, construct creatures from the new monster manual, do we? Or at least they don't have clockwork in the name. Real quick, I'm gonna look at... Because one thing I want to use is the, as much of the 2024 content as I can, but I'm curious to see what constructs are actually in the monster manual. Creatures by type. Constructs. Animated armor, animated broom, animated flying sword, animated rug of smothering, brazen gorgon, clay golem, colossus, flesh golem, gorgon. By gorgon, I mean the bull things? Helmed horror, homunculus, iron golem, various modrons, scarecrow, shield guardian, stone golem. Not a whole lot of options. What is the gorgon stat block? I've never used that before. I guess you could always take any stat block and... I got distracted by gargoyle. Gargoyle's elemental, okay. And turn it into... Because I could take a direwolf, right? And turn that into a clockwork defender by just changing the stats around. What the hell is a gorgon? God, there's so many G's. Goblins, gold dragon. Okay. Yeah, it's the bull thing. And iron plates. Lifelike automatons that seek to destroy all who enter their territories. The base one is a CR5, though. It's a freaking boss level thing. The petrifying breath. So that would be closer to like this, a single one to use as a boss fight. And then Brazen Gorgon's even stronger than that. So the Clockwork Defender that's used here is a CR1, although for CR1 it's very strong, I'm looking at. An AC of 17, hit points 42. I think that automatically just qualifies that for CR1. It only has 1 attack, but it's a +5, and it deals 1d8 plus 3 piercing plus 2d6 lightning damage. And it grapples them. A creature grappled by the defender takes the damage again at the start of each of the defender's turns. That's awesome. Although it only has the 1 attack, and it doesn't have a ranged attack. So that's kind of what I need to play with there. So then the Observer, I assume, is like something that just spies. Yeah, only AC 14, hit point 7. It's got Flyby and Shriek. The Observer emits a mechanical shriek until the start of its next turn until it drops to 0 hit points. Okay. Talk about what these things... Where's my book? Like 6 books on my shelf right now, and it's not enough. Alright, the end of the adventure has the stat blocks. Or wait. Oh, I guess the individual adventure, not the book. Okay, there's Talkworth's. Okay, Clockwork Defender is a mechanical quadruped that vaguely resembles a hound. Okay. Clockwork Observer serves as an aerial spy, for its crater looks like a mechanical grapefruit-sized orb suspended under softly humming propeller blades. Okay. Also has keenly perceptive eyes. It does have a passive perception of 16. That's pretty good. It's also easy to be sniped, though, technically. With 7 hit points and AC of 14, it can actually destroy that. Interesting. I wish there was like one more unique stat block we could pair it with. Like somebody who's like more of a humanoid that has range attacks or something. I feel like that's a little bit of a vulnerability for the defender only having a single melee attack. Let them shoot lightning bolts or something. But we've got time. We've got plenty of time to talk about Talkworth's Clockworks. I do like this adventure a lot. I think it's, an excuse to go into the Underdark. It's got some cool monsters in it. It still has kind of the heisty thing where the party is given an objective. It's just that instead of stealing a thing and getting it out of there, you're just stealing the thing and then using it to shut down and kind of save this whole town. But, I think it's good. That's why I'm using it. But for now, I think that is going to do it for this crafting the Golden Vault. If you enjoy the content, as always, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Brandon, Genocider, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Buzz, Boardy Mill, Seat, Tom, the Dogs, Marcus, Snuggy, Hugo, Sasha, John, Morbid Reaver, Jealous Guy, Zim, Jesse, Dante, Albert, Demnix, Sharny, and Gold patrons, RPG Paper Crafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, This is the Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Scott, Rufus, Jerry, Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you on Friday for D&D, or for patron players who are in tonight's game. I'll see you tonight.